to another episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns.
That's right. It's another live football episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns coming to you on a Thursday for like the first time I think ever. It's your guy, Bully Rye, alongside me, Banker Bill. Bill, what's happening, bud?
What's going on, man? Sort of an impromptu show, like talked about it on Tuesday night. Hey, do you want to do it on Thursday? All right, let's do it on Thursday.
Yeah, let's do it on Thursday. First of all, happy holidays, happy New Year, everybody. This is our first show of 2025. And Bill, if you can believe it, I think we're at like episode, I'm actually trying to look it up right now. Episode like 28 of the show this season? 28. No, this is episode 31 of season 6. Haven't done a lot of foot wrestling shows, so interesting to see if we get any more of those in. But happy New Year, everybody. Hope you are joining us tonight. Normally Thursdays are my nights to go to my open mics, but no open mic tonight, so we didn't obviously get to record yesterday, being New Year's Day. And we didn't record last week because it was Christmas. So if you do happen to join us, we are on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So make sure you leave a comment wherever it is that you're watching the show and join the conversation. I doubt we're going to get a lot of traffic in here tonight because there is one more bowl game going on as we record this game, as Duke takes on Ole Miss in the Gator Bowl. And we're going to get to some college football talk because the last college football playoff game in this round just concluded less than 20 minutes ago. So we're going to get into that here in a second. But first and foremost, it's my favorite time of the show when we start the show with Homer's Corner. But I'm not all that happy about my Homer's Corner this week. Bill, if you didn't watch the South Carolina-Illinois bowl game, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, a lot of that game was spent with Brett Bielema, the head coach of Illinois, making very, very slow substitutions when South Carolina was substituting on offense. That would essentially result in South Carolina getting close to taking a penalty or actually having to take a timeout to avoid a penalty. It got to the point where you could see it on the sidelines that Shane Beamer was telling the Big 12 officiating crew that they can't do that. And on top of it, by the second half, you also saw the Ole Miss tactic of feigning injury when the offense started getting some momentum. And so at one point, Ole Miss had a player, or I'm sorry, Ole Miss. That's how much I remember that game. Illinois had a player that was injured and this is after South Carolina had had made a trick play on a kickoff return, in which one of the return man signaled that he wasn't going to return the ball and then returned it to throw a lateral, and the ball went like 30, 40 yards or something like that. But as an Illinois player lay injured on the ground, Brett Bielema comes to the sideline, comes to check on his player with his arms out, doing the signal for no return, which could also be mistaken for a signal for a substitution, looking at head coach Shane Beamer. And once he checked on his player, he did it again. And it has been all the talk of college football when Shane Beamer lost it on the sidelines because head coach of Illinois, Brett Bielema, taunted the South Carolina sideline with an official in his face. And no unsportsmanlike penalty was called. I'm here to tell you, I'm happy that South Carolina doesn't play in the Big 12. I thought SEC officiating was bad. I'm not saying that officiating cost us that game. We didn't play well enough to win the Citrus Bowl. South Carolina lost, I think, 21-17, somewhere around there. But there were some questionable calls and some questionable no calls in that game. There were three consecutive plays where Dylan Stewart was held and even tackled to the ground. That was not called. But nevertheless, the audacity of a head coach to literally taunt the sideline of another coach in the middle of a game, it just shows a lack of class. The last time Brett Bielema coached in the SEC, it didn't work out too well for him. They're still trying to rebuild from what Brett Bielema tried to do in Arkansas. So congratulations for getting your 10th win in Illinois, the first time in over 20 years that Illinois was able to win 10 games in a single season. But much like the doofus that's head coaching the Denver Broncos, it will always and forever be Brett Bielema can kick rocks. I said something a lot less friendly on X, and I found out very quickly that you can't tell somebody to eat dog excrement. I actually a little further than that, but apparently that it went against the code of conduct for X, and I was suspended for 12 hours from doing anything outside of reading. I was in read only mode over on X. But God forbid you can show pornography all over X without any restrictions. I mean, let's be honest. Let's make a joke out of it here. I believe Texas, South Carolina, Florida, and a couple other states were all just banned from using the popular adult website. But go on X and you can see all you want. But God forbid you tell a guy to go choke on the other end of a hot dog, and you're gonna catch a 12-hour ban. So listen, Bill, we've seen this happen all throughout college football. You and I have talked about it. Actually, somebody mentioned it on X too. We've talked about the NIL and the transfer portal with that regulation is ruining college football. And I would argue that the deliberate slowing down of substitutions intentionally, with the officiating not saying, hey, they rush to you've got a reasonable time to get on the field. You can't be doing what you're doing back and forth. Alongside these fake penalties where a player gets up and is perfectly fine, looks at the sideline, then goes down to halt the momentum of an offense. That right there is what is ruining college football, because it disrupts the flow of the game. It disrupts the integrity of the game. And when you've got a guy like Brett Bielema who has to resort to that in order to get some sort of edge against the South Carolina team who was missing the best defensive player in the country who set out for this game, their number one running back from this season, and in the second half, their best defensive back, their best corner, decided to sit down for the second half. So that's the kind of thing he had to resort to being a 9-win South Carolina team. More power to you, Brett Bielema. But as long as you're a head coach, I'll root against you. I don't care if you're at Illinois. If you come to South Carolina, I'll stop rooting for you. How's that? Brett Bielema can forever kick rocks in my book. And they've got to do something to stop this slowing down of substitutions and these faking of injuries in college football. The NBA finally put something in place for flopping. There's got to be an unsportsmanlike for faking an injury in college football that gives the opposing team like a 15-yard penalty and lets them go. Something's got to stop. Bill, what say you?
Well, there was, I watched part of the game, and they did say the announcers were talking about it early in the game because it was pretty obvious what he was doing and what they were doing as a team. And they did say that the officials should be telling them, hey, you need to do this faster, and then allowing the offense, like putting the ball in play while they're on the field, still substitute. That's how you're supposed to fix it. But for some reason, the Big 12 officials did not do that. They did not put the ball in play, allow the offense to snap the ball while the defense is still doing their substitution because they're doing it so slowly. I think it was players getting off the field were being slower than the players getting on the field. So they were taking their time getting off the field. So in that situation, the official is supposed to say, go ahead and run the play. Offense, snaps the ball, the defensive penalty, too many men on the field. And then that will stop it. Like once you say, hey, you're only going to get this amount of time, that's what they were supposed to do. And the announcers said it's what they should be doing, and they weren't doing it. On the Big 12 officials, what are you going to do at this point? Game's over. It's just like they complaining about the LSU game, and then what are you going to do about that too? But like you said, you're a little bit undermanned. I didn't think Illinois was very good. I just didn't think you guys played a very good game. And yeah, Bielema, I find it a little bit hypocritical that here you are talking about a classless individual, then you go on Twitter and get banned for being classless. That's pretty funny.
No, listen, it's the fact that Bielema has the nerve
awesome
to get on X and run his mouth about it. He's still talking about it on X. He's
garbage. Like whatever. He's
trash.
Like relax. Like you guys are going to be better than them next year. It's not that big a deal. It's a bowl game. it is what it is. Like bowl games are just not that important anymore. However, we did pull a trophy. So
Well, that game felt like, even the announcer said, it
was
did
really
not
weird.
feel like a meaningless bowl game.
It was really weird. That had a
the-
weird
the-
feeling to a bowl game. Like it didn't feel like a good. So the bowl games usually have, and at least traditionally, have a lot of pomp and circumstance to them. And I kind of feel like south of maybe like the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is built on its own ridiculousness, and everybody loves it, and it is fun. But every other bowl game just seems to be kind of like, bleh, like nobody cares anymore. It's all about players getting money and who's transferring and who's leaving to go to the NFL. And nobody really cares to win these games anymore. It's unfortunate. Maybe we should put some, I mean, we could probably fix it by putting like bonus money. If you win the bowl, you get big money, you know, like that kind of thing. But yeah, that was a weird game. It just felt really like deflated from the very beginning. And South Carolina came out completely flat. So,
well, the crowd was into it.
It just didn't.
The whole crowd. There was the Illinois half, the South Carolina half. It was one of the most energetic bowl games that I'd seen.
It just
in
felt
all of
weird,
bowl
though.
season.
It felt weird.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to feel
It's a
weird.
Citrus Bowl. That's supposed to be a pretty high end bowl, and it
was.
No, it is. It is. But
both
it just
teams.
didn't feel...
I think both teams played okay enough defensively. I mean, it was a low scoring game, all things considered. But I'm a pretty hefty guy. And as far as Brett Bielema goes, he can take his fat rear end and eat a couple of cheeseburgers on his way back to Illinois.
Well done.
I'm sure. I've made a joke in my stand up that I one time went to a restaurant and said that I was trying to eat healthy, and the waitress told me, "Oh, you're just getting ready for winter." And the joke was, I've been getting ready for winter since 2005. Apparently, Brett Bielema has been getting ready for winter for much longer. I guess he
chop at the knees. I
guess he had to do it. I guess he had to do it when he couldn't make it in the South, and he had to go back up north to coach football. I guess that's why he had to get ready for winter.
It's cold up there.
Hey, Mama Frick says Happy New Year, and she likes the jersey I'm wearing. One of the Christmas gifts from Mama Frick in the chat.
Very nice.
Let's stay on the subject of college football, because the college football playoffs are rolling along. Like I said, it's not a playoff game, but there's a bowl game going on right now as Ole Miss is taking on Duke in the Gator Bowl. But the college football playoffs just had a game come to its conclusion, and we finally have a Final Four in the college football playoff. Before we get to the Final Four, let's look at the results from the other games that have been played. We got to see Notre Dame roll through Indy. Basically, the first round was a bunch of blowouts. The Indiana-Notre Dame game looks a lot closer because Indiana made a push in the second half. Notre Dame gets that win 27-17 to advance. Texas stomps Clemson. Again, Clemson had a second half surge that tried to see them come back, but that score looks closer than it was. Clemson fired their defensive coordinator just yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Tennessee, probably the biggest blowout of the first round, as they go on the road to Ohio State and get blown out 42-17. And then Penn State takes care of SMU 38-10. Before we get into that second round of bowl games, we didn't get a chance to talk about this live after it happened. Bill, I think you and I both talked about the fact that what teams were deserving and what teams weren't deserving to be in the playoff. Now, hindsight being 2020, we've seen Alabama lose their bowl game to a not so good Michigan team. I don't know what the score is right now, but depending on what Ole Miss does against Duke, will be interesting to see what happens there. Texas A&M got beat by a pretty mediocre Southern Cal team, and then South Carolina lost to a 10-win Big Ten team. But when you look at these teams that got blown out in the first round, let me ask you the first question that I want to ask. Do you think the committee got it right with the 12 teams in the playoff?
You know, that's an excellent question. It really is. I honestly think yes. Now, I think the only team that's questionable still would have been SMU. SMU just was completely outclassed by Penn State. And we saw them lose to Clemson in the championship game. Did we really think SMU should have been in the championship game from the start of the season? No. They were a surprise to us. They made the ACC championship game, and they got beat by Clemson, which was a 3-loss team. So they're out. They're out at that point. You should be out. You got beat by a 3-loss team. We got to consider these things. But the committee said, no. We don't care about the conference championship games. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like we don't play those games. Like that was dumb. So I don't think SMU should have been in there. I think now with Notre Dame making it all the way through to the Final Four, I think one of the teams we thought probably shouldn't be there was Indiana. And I think you'd say probably now they belonged. They only lost by 10. Georgia lost by 13. So I think Indiana probably belonged there. And you already called it out. I think the teams we thought might get in, teams like Alabama, teams like South Carolina, they lost their bowl games.
Miami too. Miami lost their bowl game.
Yeah, Miami played really well against Ohio State, and their quarterback sat down. He would not have sat down in the second half in a college football playoff game, likely. Yeah. Although but at the same time, I don't think anybody thought Iowa State was very good. Maybe they were probably at the level of SMU, and Miami they were just barely beating them at 31-28 at halftime. So I don't think the teams that were outside looking in made any kind of push, in their bowl game to say, hey, we really should have put those people in. They look fantastic. So I think right now, other than maybe SMU, and I honestly don't know who you replaced them with, but I think it was probably right.
So here's I don't know if I want to pose it as a question, rather maybe so than a statement. I think that when they decided to go to 12 teams, I think I at least was very vocal about the fact that it was too many. Go with the top 10. You don't need 12. The first 2 teams get a bye, and then start all this over with. To me, the 4 teams that got blown out in the first round showed me that expanding to 12 teams was too much, because those 4 teams that got blown out were all outclassed by the teams that they had to play against. On top of that, if you look at those teams that made the playoff, Clemson won the ACC championship game and had to go on the road to make the playoff. But if you look at the teams that got their first round byes, you're looking at Boise State, who we'll get to in a second. You look at Arizona State, who also is not going on. A matter of fact, all top 4 seeds, and I know I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves, all top 4 seeds have now been knocked out of the playoff. Now you're going to start to ask the question that we normally do in Major League Baseball. Did getting the first round bye allow these teams to sit too long, to get cold, lose momentum, and now they're getting knocked off by these teams who just had to play in the first round? Now, having said that, all the lower seeds lost in the first round. So you and I both know that after next season, because the 2025-2026 season will be the last year of the 12-team playoff. They will expand to 16 in the year following. I guess my question is, can they allow automatic bids to get buys going forward? Because is it going to set up too much too many unbalanced teams playing against each other? Like, when they go to 16, I don't want to see 1 versus 16. We know what's going to happen.
Do you?
I don't. Yes.
Why?
Yes. We saw it in the first round this year.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. I think that's fair this year. Okay, first year of the playoff. However, there are teams that did not make the college football playoff that may have played well against the 1 seed going in. Teams like BYU that absolutely blew away Colorado in the bowl game. That was a stacked Heisman Trophy, #1 quarterback. A stacked Colorado team got blown away by BYU in a bowl game. We're still talking about how great these Colorado players are. Give me a break. Yeah. There are teams out there, I think. You say this, right? Let's just use college basketball as an example. 16 versus 1 may never happen. It might take 40 years for the 16 to beat the 1. But the day
it's
it
happened
does,
once in history.
But the day it does, it'll be one of the greatest things you've ever seen. 15 may never beat the 2. The 14's barely ever going to beat the 3. The 12's always going to beat the 5, Ryan. We know this. But it's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. First of all, Volley Polly chimed in a pretty funny sentiment. Imagine being a fan of a team that beat Texas twice this year just to watch the Longhorns advance to the semifinals and you not to. We're getting there. I don't know. I think they went too far. Like, eventually, after they go to 16, there's going to be those teams that complain about, I was 17, I should have been in. We talked about it a few weeks ago on the show. I believe that the top 12 teams should be the 12 teams in the playoff. And so it made no sense that the number 16 team in the country in Clemson was rated, was the 12 seed in the playoff. If they're going to be 12.
No.
They need to be 12.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think Clemson has to be in. They won their title game. I think it's James Franklin that I heard talk about this. He said that he has it fixed. Get rid of the title games. Get rid of the conference title games, conference championship games. Just get rid of those. Now, I don't think it's going to happen because those conferences make a lot of money.
Yeah, we also
said all about money
weeks ago too.
Yeah, get rid of the conference championship games. But if you're not going to, I think it's right to go to 16. I think, again, we left some teams out that probably could have made some noise in this playoff. I think SMU probably shouldn't have been there. Maybe BYU was the team that should have gotten in, but you never know. You just don't know with these teams. It's going to be more fun. We don't know. And the other part is you say, oh, Alabama, they didn't, this didn't happen, or South Carolina didn't play well because their best defensive player sat down or their best corner sat down in the second half and they lost by 6 points to, or 4 points to a questionable Illinois team. If they're playing in the college football playoff, those players aren't sitting down.
They're not sitting.
We get the real South Carolina team. Those transfers that are leaving South Carolina, Rocket Sanders, he's going to the NFL. They're not missing that football game. They're playing in that football game. You get the real South Carolina. Alabama had the same situation. They were wondering who was going to play in the game. You've got players that sit down, and it's not going to happen if these players are playing in the college football playoff, have a shot at winning the national title, and you're never gonna know. Alabama would have been an 11 seed this year if you go by the ranking. Are they? What does the 11 match up against? The 5? No, it's 6. 11-6. So that would have been Ohio State, Alabama. That would have been fun.
Speaking of Alabama, side note, did you see Jalen Milroe declare for the NFL draft today? Thoughts?
Expectation. I think that was what was going to happen. Enjoy riding the pine, my friend, because you're never going to get off of it.
Yeah, I don't know. He gets drafted
above
any of the other guys that were already graduating. Like that.
I saw one thing in the bowl game. You put pressure on Jalen Milroe, his eyes drop. He stops looking downfield and thinks about running. He's got to get rid of that, or else he'll never make it in the NFL.
Who will be a worse pro quarterback, Jalen Milroe or
Anthony Richardson? There's nobody worse than Anthony Richardson. That guy is terrible. He will not be in the league in like 5 years unless he's playing tight end.
Even then, like he I don't know. He doesn't have the body for tight end. All right, let's move on here because the Elite Eight, if you will, of the college football playoff took place over the week. Unfortunate news out of New Orleans that postponed the Sugar Bowl between Notre Dame and Georgia as there was a terror attack that took the lives of 12 people. Thoughts and prayers go out to them. That game was postponed until today. And it concluded less than an hour ago. Let's talk about all 4 of these games that took place that saw the top 4 seeds in the college football playoff go down. Let's start off with Penn State taking out Boise State 31-14. I think we both expected this to happen despite the fact that Penn State doesn't play. Like we talk about this. Every year they play in the Big Ten. They play well. They have a winning record. And then when they get to the top teams like an Oregon or an Ohio State, they can't win. But I think we can agree that Boise State got in on the back of Ashton Jeanty, who did not have a good game against Penn State, because they finally matched up with somebody out in the Mountain West. Now, Boise State gets to go to the Pac-12 in a year, but it's not the old Pac-12. What are your thoughts on Penn State advancing to the Final Four?
I think that was what we expected. I don't think we thought Boise State would be able to play with them. It wasn't really Jeanty's fault. They were running like a 9-man box. Like that quarterback couldn't. I mean, come on, you got to do something.
Jeanty beat him. They weren't going to let him beat him. And
he didn't do horrible. Regardless, he still had 30 carries, 100, and I think it was 105. I think he averaged 3.5 yards carry. I mean, it's not the game we would hope for Jeanty, on his way out the door. But I mean, the quarterback's got to take pressure off the guy, and he didn't. I mean, they should have been able to throw with that box being so tight. They couldn't do it.
Real quick, shout out if you're watching the show on Facebook or YouTube. There's nobody on the Instagram feed right now. Leave a comment wherever you're watching. Join the conversation as we talk about college football playoff. The next game was probably the best game of these 4 games.
Probably.
It was. It honestly, it's an instant classic in
it really was a good game.
Texas was beaten up on Arizona State, and Arizona State charged back and took Texas to 2 overtimes, but Texas gets the win 39-31 in double overtime. They bottled up Scattaboo, the undersized, albeit star running back out of Arizona State until the second half.
Until they didn't.
Until
he went crazy. Yeah,
140 yards rushing. He threw a touchdown in this game, but Texas gets the win in double overtime. I don't know if there's much to say about this game, Bill. Like, Texas was up big, but they gave up that lead. Does that make you worry about their next game?
Oh, 100%. They kept talking about how great their defense was. I mean, it was 23-8 late in this game. All of a sudden, Scatterboo throws this crazy touchdown. They go for 2. They get it. Texas can't do anything. Ewers is questionable. That's my issue. But Texas can't do anything with the ball. Arizona State gets the ball back, goes and scores, gets another 2-point conversion, and suddenly we're tied, and then Texas can't kick a field goal. And that was nuts. There was a moment I believe it was the first overtime where Arizona State had already scored a touchdown, and they had Texas had a 4th and 13. And from what yard line? It was pretty deep, like the 28. I don't know. It was just back there. And I was like, this is the opportunity. All you got at 4th and 13, just play an umbrella cover. Just be out everywhere in the way. And they ran an all-out blitz and just couldn't cover. And they didn't get any pressure on Ewers, throws a touchdown. And this game was so good at the end. My wife started watching. She was messing around on her phone and started making comments about the game. And I'm like, she's watching this with me. Okay. She was enjoying the second half. And I said to her right at that moment, I said, that was Arizona State's chance. I said, Texas go win this game now. That was where they needed to stop. The air's out of the balloon and it's over with. And that was the case. After that, Texas obviously scores that touchdown, scores again, and then Arizona State throws a pick to lose. But good for Arizona State, man. They're the only team that we probably thought were overrated in their position that they ended up getting seeded in, and they were the only team to play to that seed. They belonged there, and they showed it. And ton of heart. Their quarterback's pretty good too. He wasn't terrible.
I'm gonna argue. I don't think that I ever said they were worse than people expected. I
don't think anybody expected them to be a 4.
No, Arizona State. Outside of South Carolina, Arizona State was the hottest team at the end of the season in college football.
They were hotter.
Beat them.
Obviously
they were hotter.
Yeah.
But like you said, Texas scores on the first play of double overtime, and then forces an errant throw on fourth down to win the game. Trey Tolles in the chat. The Texas game was definitely exciting. Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought Arizona State belonged in the first place. Like, I thought if they're going to give automatic buys to conference champions, obviously I thought they deserved it. I thought that obviously the other teams, Georgia and Oregon, deserved it. But it was always that toss up between Clemson and Boise State, and neither one of them had good showings in the playoffs. So really, did it matter? But yes, so far your game of the playoffs was Texas 39, Arizona State 31 in 2 overtimes. The next game that took place was a rematch from the Ohio State-Oregon game that saw Ohio State's quarterback, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, make a mistake in the fourth quarter and lose to Oregon in the regular season. Will Howard. Yep, I knew it was going to come to me. Will Howard made a mistake that saw them lose that game in regulation. Did not get a chance to have a rematch in the Big Ten championship game as they lost to Michigan in the final week of the season. But Ohio State made the most out of it as they took it to Oregon. This game was never close. And listen, I've made it clear there are 3 teams that I can't stand more than anybody else in college in college sports. It's Clemson, it's Ohio State, and it's Tennessee. But I had some moron jawing at me on X about Oregon, calling us USC Junior and stuff like that. Like, call me when you win something. I'm like, okay, right back at you, buddy. We won a Big Ten in our first year. And I'm like, okay. And like, you're down 24-0 in this game. That's embarrassing, dude. As much as I hate Ohio State, I was so glad to see them win this game just to punish that dude for running his mouth. Because fans like that deserve to watch their teams lose. But Ohio State, I think they kind of look like what everybody expected them to look like in the preseason before they lost to Oregon, especially since they lost before they lost to Michigan. Bill, what were your thoughts? Oregon was the last undefeated team left, and they found the absolute worst time to lose their first game of the year, and Oregon's going home early. What were your thoughts about this Ohio State-Oregon matchup?
It's not very often that you play me into TV submission where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go find something else to do. Like this. Then it's like, this game's not fun anymore. That's what happened last night with the Ohio State game. They were amazing in the first half. Fantastic offense. I don't know who number 4 is. I can't remember his name. I can't memorize everybody, but man, he was unbelievable, that wide receiver that they have. And Oregon just looked terrible. Dylan Gabriel looked small because he is. And just their offensive line couldn't stand up to the Ohio State defensive line. And they made it boring, man. And that's awesome. There was a moment in the end of the first half, you get the touchdown by Oregon State. You felt a little bit. You felt the twinge of, could the momentum change, right? How good is Ohio State? Can they put out this fire? Oregon comes down, they score again. And we're like, okay, now it's 34-15. And then Ohio State, all right, we're done messing with you. We're done with this. And then just shuts them out for the rest of the game, puts up a touchdown, and then they had one more touchdown. They had 6 points, but it was just terrible. And so at that point, once they put up 41, I was like, it was going to be hard for them to get to 34. Like I was telling somebody today, like they had to turn into a team that was going to be able to score 70 against, at that pace, they were going to have to score almost 70 against Ohio State. They're not doing it. They're not going to get 34 in the second half. So I was like, we'll see how close they can get. And then when they put up the 41, I actually went and did something else. I had it on. It was like noise in the background, but it just
The wide receiver you're looking for is Jeremiah Smith.
That guy. He's special.
We've got all the games, and the fourth game took place tonight, and might be the most surprising outcome of any of the games in the college football playoff. Notre Dame takes out Georgia 23-10. Georgia playing with the quarterback Gunnar Stockton after Carson Beck hurts his elbow on his throwing arm in the SEC championship game. Thought they might be able to get him back. He had surgery to repair that elbow. And so he's a third-year player, if you can believe that, is Gunnar Stockton. Made his first collegiate start in the college football playoff. He played well, but his offensive line didn't. It didn't seem like they could really get a run game going. Notre Dame sort of dominates this game. 23-10 is your final. In the fourth quarter, with plenty of time left, Notre Dame is going for it on fourth down. Georgia tried the old trick about the late substitutions, but Georgia, playing with integrity, rushed onto the field with their defenders. Not only did Notre Dame get the ball off, they got Georgia to jump off sides and hit a big play to continue that drive on fourth down, killed another 4 minutes off the clock. Would eventually give the ball back to Georgia, but Georgia could not do anything with it. Mama Frick said that she wanted Georgia, but Georgia goes down to Notre Dame here. Again, so far, the most surprising outcome of the college football playoff, despite Georgia playing with a new quarterback in this game. What are your thoughts on Notre Dame taking out Georgia?
Well, Notre Dame gets a break not having to play Carson Beck, regardless of how good Gunnar Stockton did play. And you're right, he did play well. This game took a turn on one play, and man, does it make me happy. And that was the – but you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That was the ex-Florida Gator, Trevor Etienne, you traitor. I hope you get what's coming to you, traitor. He fumbled the ball as Georgia was going for an opening touchdown. It was their second possession. They were flying down the field, and he had just run for a first down, and little man got popped. The ball kept going. He did not, and Notre Dame recovers it. And from that point, it was kind of Notre Dame's game, and I just couldn't help but love it as a Florida Gators fan. Glad you ain't on my team, you little fumbler. But
little fumbler.
It's his first ever fumble, Ryan, in 350 collegiate carries.
I bet you don't even call your mom on Mother's Day.
That's
bum.
Right. That's right. How about that NIL money, pal? I hope that's making your hands all sticky because they can't hang on to the ball. Anyway, was pretty happy about the Georgia Bulldogs going down. And Notre Dame, I think, surprises us a little bit. I think we didn't expect them to be there. We said they played an FCS schedule for the entire regular season. They didn't play anybody really all that good. They lost to Northern Illinois. And now they're in the Final Four. So what are we going to get now? I have no idea. I don't know what they're going to do against Penn State. We already saw Penn State lose to Oregon in the Big Ten title game, right? So we don't know how good they are. I think the other side of the bracket is much scarier, and I'm really scared of Ohio State. But I kept saying, they're the best team.
it pays to play an FCS schedule because your players are nice and fresh by the time.
No,
the
you
college
have to
football
be good
playoff roll
though.
around.
You have to be good if you're going to
Of
be.
course,
a team
they
that has
have to be
like
good.
Georgia. Or I
But-
mean, if Trevor Etienne's going to keep giving you the ball, I mean, hey,
If you're playing a bunch of practice games to get ready for the Georgia game, of course you're going to get better as the season rolls along. You had 12 exhibition games against like 3 good teams in Texas A&M, and Army, and Navy. You lose to a bad Northern Illinois team. And so, yeah, I mean,
mediocre
I guess,
Northern Illinois team. I'm pretty sure they went bowling this year, Ryan.
of course they did, but it's still
Yes.
Northern Illinois. As a top seed in the college football playoff. By the way, as long as it sits now, Notre Dame will never get a bye in the college football playoff because they're not in a conference and don't play for conference championship game. Yeah, a team like Notre Dame doesn't lose to Northern Illinois. Sean McElveen in the chat so far have been perfect on the college football playoff games, including the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame, Ohio State, and a thriller. I also hate it because I had a parlay that I had Georgia dominating Notre Dame, and all the other 4 games on my parlay hit, and Georgia just had to take the money out of my pocket. That being said, we got a little bit of NFL to get to, but let's go ahead and preview this Final Four since we're here now. The Orange Bowl will feature the 6 seed Penn State taking on the 7 seed Notre Dame. When Notre Dame sort of played in the Big Ten, you got some matchups between them and Notre Dame.
Played in the Big Ten.
Played in big, when they played more, when they were affiliated with the Big Ten in basketball, they played more of a Big Ten football schedule. We aren't picking this game because they're not playing this week. But Bill, what are your thoughts on Penn State Notre Dame? Just quick glance.
I have no idea. Penn State's playing over their head, but they didn't really have to play anybody to get here. Again,
yeah.
You
There's
went
no
to SMU and Boise State. Pretty sure Florida would be there too. But yeah, I have no idea. Honestly, I think Notre Dame probably, but it's going to be. I think they're the better team. They're looking like the better team.
The opening line has Notre Dame favored by 1.5.
Yeah.
In the Cotton Bowl, it features the 8 seed Ohio State as a 6-point favorite against the 5 seed Texas. I'm with you. I think Ohio State's the more dangerous team right now. Texas showed that they struggled to hold a lead. We'll get to pick that game next week on the show.
Look where that's played.
Yeah, they get to play it. What is it in Dallas?
Yes. Can you believe they got a freaking home game?
I mean, Georgia gets a home game every time they play in the SEC championship game. If we're going to go there,
that's a good point. But I mean, the stakes are a little higher, and they get a home
much
game.
higher,
Ridiculous.
Much higher. Let's talk some NFL because we got about 20 more minutes left in the show, and we are reaching Week 18 in the NFL, and the playoffs are just about set. If you look at the AFC side, there are 6 teams of the 7 already decided in the playoff, with a little bit of seeding that could change up. The Kansas City Chiefs are solidified as the 1 seed. The Bills are the 2 seed, and the Texans are solidified as the 4 seed. But with some scenarios here, it will be the Ravens or the Steelers in the 3 seed. And then in your the other one will be obviously a wild card team, the Chargers being the 2nd wild card team. And either the Broncos, the Dolphins, or Bengals will be the final wild card spot in the AFC. We'll get to those scenarios in a second. The NFC side, we've got the Lions or the Vikings will take on the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Eagles have locked up the 2. The Rams have essentially locked up the 3 seed. And then you've got the Vikings, Commanders, and Packers as your wild card teams that are already locked in. The final seed in the NFC playoffs will be the winner of the NFC South, which will feature either the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Atlanta Falcons, who are still mathematically alive. We've got one more comment before we move on here. Brendan McCrate, good seeing you, bud. It's been a while. To be fair, Georgia went into this without their stud quarterback, literally the kid's first college start. We did talk about that. And it is what it is. Happy New Year to you, Brendan. Good to see you in the show. Hope you come back and watch more episodes as we move forward with the show. Bill, are there any surprise teams looking at who we've got in the playoffs right now and who have been mathematically eliminated? Are there any surprises that you see in the NFL?
Not at this point of the season. Like I think this is. I mean, we've been watching this for all these 17 weeks now. 17.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's really maybe the Chargers, but the Harbaugh thing, like you kind of expected they were going to take a step forward, or you hoped that Harbaugh is really good coach. He was.
You can't get much worse than the Chargers were last year, right?
I'm just saying, like it was Harbaugh getting hired, and you're like, they're going to take a step forward, and they did. Good for them. I mean, honestly, other than Washington, but was it me this year that said that the Washington Commanders were going to be better than I thought?
I can't hear you, Bill. I can't see you. You can't see me.
I thought it was me. I think it was. This is 2 years in a row that I picked a dumpster fire of a team and they made the playoffs.
Andy Hunter over on Instagram watching with us. Good to see you, Andy. Yeah, you did. You called Washington. I'll say, listen, I don't think anybody, if you had gone into the regular season, preseason, and we did, knowing that Sam Darnold was going to be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings.
Good point.
Nobody would have expected, at least I did not expect it. That was one of my biggest wrongs. Next week, we're going to do where Bully and Bill were right and wrong.
I think I had them winning 3 games. Season. 3 games,
I think I had them winning like 4.
Like, I didn't even look that low. I didn't even go down. I'm like looking at the teams. I didn't even look that low.
I had them 2-15
with
Sam Darnold at quarterback. So like that was one of my biggest blunders. I totally biffed it with the Minnesota Vikings. And the fact is that Sam Darnold is a free agent at the end of the season.
Oh, he's going to make so much money.
And the Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy. So there's a solid chance that Sam Darnold, who is a Pro Bowler, we're going to get to that in a second, but he's a Pro Bowler. There's a solid chance he will not be back with the Viking next year.
No, they'll sign him. They'll sign. He's going to make so much money this year. He'll franchise tag him if anything.
I can't
Kirk Cousins thing all over again for the Vikings. It's like what goes around comes around.
I listen, in my opinion, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you cannot not sign Sam Darnold. I don't care that you just drafted J.J. McCarthy in the first round. You've now finally got yourself a situation that the Packers have had for years, where you've got the next man up sitting, learning from a veteran in Sam Darnold. I mean, there's potentially 2 playoff teams with quarterbacks that were on the Carolina Panthers roster at the same time and could not win a game. And they're potentially both going to be playoff teams. It's just crazy. Congratulations to listen, we've seen players like Joe Flacco got comeback player of the year last year, despite the fact that Damar Hamlin literally came back from the dead and couldn't get playoff comeback player of the year. I think there's a chance that Sam Darnold wins comeback player of the year this year. Like, he was left for dead.
Could there be like a most surprising player award?
No, there should be.
There should be. Like, we had no idea you were this good. That's kind of what.
I don't know if you remember, Sam Darnold was backing up in San Francisco last year.
Yeah.
Like nobody knew this was coming. So kudos to the Vikings. As a Lions fan, hard to believe that they've gotten this good.
You know, can I say one thing about this though?
Sure.
This is becoming, and I don't want to call it a trend, but we've at least seen it a couple times now. Geno Smith took like 8 years to figure out how to play quarterback, and he's pretty good now. Decent, right?
He's decent.
So Sam Darnold took 6 years to figure out how to. What is with? I mean, these are both the fairly highly touted players coming out of college, and then I mean, Geno slipped in the draft. Remember that saga where he sat in the room by himself for all this time. It was terrible. He didn't cry though. Sounds good. But and Darnold saying, but they thought he was going to be great coming out of college. I mean, Colin Cowherd was singing his praises for years, and everybody laughed at him, and now he's right. But here we've seen these guys that once given an opportunity, one's finding the right system, one's finding the right situation, and now they're flourishing. This is a weird thing, man, and I feel like a lot of these. I don't think it's a lot, but I think there's a certain percentage of quarterbacks that end up flaming out because of the absolute garbage organizations that they belong to. With terrible coaching, terrible ownership, terrible general managers, terrible personnel all the way around them, and they flame out of the NFL. And these guys that are able to just hang on for a little bit, Geno Smith and the Sam Darnold types, and they find a place to go, and then they do well. I mean, look at Russell Wilson last year. Now, Russell Wilson's kind of slid a little bit here in Pittsburgh, but he was having a resurgence there in Pittsburgh. But he was horrible. They literally ate like $90 million in Denver to get rid of him. And he wasn't as bad as they thought he was, and it was just a really bad situation for him. Prior to that, Hall of Fame numbers.
I have so much to touch on from everything you said. We got to get to a couple of comments. First of all, Brendan, no, it's okay, man. Brendan says, man, Sam Darnold is great. A great quarterback. Said it at Carolina, keep pounding. Just didn't have the right crew around him. Podcast Mini posed the question, think that it would be down to trade J.J. McCarthy?
I don't think you'd get a ton for him right now. It depends on what everybody values him at. I think
Oh.
everybody thought he overdrafted.
I'm going to touch on that in a second. Brendan makes one more comment. We still don't have the right crew in Carolina, but definitely catching a spark. So a couple things you mentioned there. Years and years in the NFL have gone where you draft a quarterback, they sit behind a starter for a few years, and then they turn into really good quarterbacks. The most notable obviously comes to mind, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love. Think about what happened with Joe Montana and Steve Young. Think about Peyton Manning. Now, granted, Andrew Luck didn't sit around all that
He didn't sit
long.
around at all. He was the draft pick after Manning left. Bad
But
example, Ryan. That's the opposite.
Well, I mean, how about what can I say his name? They backed up Tom Brady for years, and Brady didn't want him around, so he got shipped off to San Francisco and took the Niners to 2 Super Bowls. Jimmy
Garoppolo?
Jimmy Garoppolo. He was a serviceable quarterback for a pretty long time, and he was started until Brock Purdy took over the reins.
Garoppolo, yeah.
So I don't know why, and I think it's the investment they pay these rookies. And this, which is crazy because they put a rookie cap after the Rams overpaid Sam Bradford so many years ago. But I think it shows that if you allow your now again, you're going to have generational quarterbacks that can come out and play lights out in the year one. I'm talking Jaden Daniels. I'm talking who was the other one?
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud last year. Now he's taken it. He's had a slump.
I've had quite a few rookies that are pretty good this season.
Yeah, but I'm talking like
lights out.
Pro Bowl. Jaden Daniels is a Pro Bowler. Again, we'll get to that in a second. But like, I feel like it's something to be said that they want to force these kids onto the field. I mean, Bryce Young is a prime example of a guy that I said they needed to bench last season.
It's not right for everybody, yeah.
And now he got benched this year and was able to come back and have some pretty good games for the Carolina Panthers in the second half of the season. But yeah, to your point, like there's a trend of quarterbacks that take a while to get used to the NFL speed, the NFL game, because they're getting thrust out and ruined in the first couple of years. And that's why you talk about like garbage franchises with bad ownership and bad coaching. Let's go back to Baker Mayfield for a quick second. Got drafted by the Browns. I don't know. I saw this story come out a couple of days ago. Vince Young was getting replaced by Johnny Manziel in Cleveland. He was hoping when he got signed by Cleveland, like he signed with Cleveland under the guise, like, I just want communication to be open. I want straightforward, open communication. This is what I want. Cleveland said, yeah, of course. He signs. And then they draft Johnny Manziel. And said, oh, sweet. Johnny can sit behind me for a couple of years. I can mentor him, teach him, and he'll be great when I'm gone. And Vince Young gets brought into the Cleveland Browns office to be released because they're going to go with Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel doesn't know that because they pass each other in the hallway. Doesn't know what's going on. Vince Young gets called by one of the offensive coaches. Hey, man, why aren't you in the meeting? Like, what do you mean? They didn't tell you they cut me? That is the kind of organization the Cleveland Browns are dealing with.
Yeah.
When you have an organization like that has gone through quarterback after quarterback, we're talking Johnny Manziel, despite the fact that we knew Manziel wasn't going to be that good. But Baker Mayfield, like 5 touchdowns in a game last week that basically all but won them the NFC South. Like Baker Mayfield has been balling out since he went to Tampa Bay. So yeah, it's something to be said for these quarterbacks that come in and it takes them a few years to get to it. But good on guys like Geno Smith and now Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold just made himself a very rich man at the end of the season, despite, regardless of where he winds up. I think he winds up back in Minnesota. I
just looked at Baker Mayfield's stats because I've been seeing how great he's been all season, and they're still pretty mediocre. Holy cow. Like, holy cow. That's really, really good high-level quarterback play. Wow. Okay. Sorry. You said that, and I was like, well, let me just. How good is he?
It's crazy to think that he didn't make the Pro Bowl, but if one of those quarterbacks that made the Pro Bowl on the NFC side go to the Super Bowl, he's probably the next guy up. He's probably the
39 touchdowns to 15 interceptions on the year, almost 4,300 yards, 107.6 passer rating.
Think about this: he spent half the season without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. All right, let's look at the playoff scenarios in the NFL because we got about 10 minutes and we still got to get to some of the Pro Bowl snubs and all that stuff. We were going to talk about how we feel about resting players in the final week of the season. We can skip that. Playoff scenarios: the Broncos are a winning in situation here. The Chiefs have already talked about benching their starters, playing the B team, Kansas City Chiefs. The Broncos are they're a big favorite against the Chiefs this weekend. But if the Broncos lose and the Dolphins win, then that means the Dolphins are in. But if the Dolphins and Broncos both lose and the Bengals are win this week, the Bengals get the final wild card spot. What do you think is the most likely scenario out of the AFC? Do you think the Broncos get in and
Yes,
leave nothing to question?
Yeah, I think with you're going to play the backups in Kansas City. Broncos played Kansas City earlier this season and lost on a blocked field goal, which if they hit, they win the game. So I think Broncos get in. If for some ridiculous reason that they lose, the Dolphins, I believe, are going to be without Tua in New York against the Jets. Yeah, apparently his hip is bad. They're talking about possible.
It's the hip that he had issues with in college, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. And he said he was good to go last week, and he was overruled by McDaniel. So I don't know. They're saying that Snoop was taking all the steps again this week in practice, so they don't expect him to play on Sunday. I don't know, but if they don't start him, they're done. And then it's Cincinnati if the Broncos were to lose. I think Cincinnati, and they're a very dangerous team. So the thing that I have an issue with, and this is going to seem odd, and I can't wait to see this happen. The Chiefs played on Christmas, which is a Wednesday. Their starters won't have played in 23 days when they play in the second round of the playoff. Now, granted, they'll be rested. It'll be super rested, but there has to be something said for time off and not being. But we've talked about it. That the players don't get as much time during and that's why some of the opening games of the season are a little bit choppy. Like the offense doesn't always look great. Well, you're going to have over 3 weeks that the Kansas City starters won't have played in a meaningful situation. They're just scrimmaging, basically, throwing practice, throws and whatnot. This will be interesting. I think this is almost a little bit of an experiment. It's a super, super long layoff to end the season. I think it's actually probably unprecedented. I don't think we've seen it this long before because of when that Christmas Day game was. It was super early.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't disagree with what you're saying. However, they've spent a lot of the season without their starters on offense. Isaiah Pacheco missed most of the season.
I'm not so worried about Pacheco. I'm more worried about
Pacheco's played, but you're thinking about Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I mean,
Hollywood Brown.
The timing has to be on. With the offense like that, it's a timing offense,
and they're basically getting a preseason training camp in the postseason. Like they're getting
really
ready
weird
for the playoffs. Yeah,
it's really weird. And I'm interested. The last time they had a pretty long layoff was they ended up playing Cleveland. I think it was in the second round of the playoffs. And they almost lost in a game that they really weren't expected it to be very close. And so I think this will be interesting. I'm actually hoping this is going to be terrible. I'm hoping Cleveland gets smoked in their second round game. And coaches have to, it'll be the second round because they have the bye in the first round. So
you said Cleveland, you mean the Chiefs.
I'm sorry, Chiefs. Sorry, the Chiefs.
Yeah. That's what I was like, the Browns aren't in the playoffs.
Cleveland's not playing in the playoffs. They're terrible. 3 wins. They're starting that Dorian Thompson, whatever his name is. He's really bad. But anyway, I hope the Chiefs lose in the second round, and coaches have to kind of take a look here great. That's nice. As I'm saying this, we get a wonderful comment in the chat.
Michelle Russell says Emerson wore a Kelsey jersey to Christmas.
Wonder why? Is it because his girlfriend is a famous, what is she, like an artist? She draw pictures or something?
I heard she sings like folk music,
music.
I think she plays the banjo or something.
It's a huge genre now. Big time.
Yeah,
with the kids.
Yeah.
I heard big with the kids. But anyway, I hope they get beaten. Coaches have to kind of look at that situation where, hey, we have a long layoff. We talked about it in baseball, and now I think we're seeing it in college football. These teams that take a little bit of a layoff, they have a hard time. Now, these are professional football players. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that second round game.
In the AFC, who do you have playing for the AFC Championship game?
As you say that, you're going to have me do right now.
I'll tell you right now. I think I got Chiefs Bills.
Yeah, I think the Bills are super hot. They're scary. I don't think there's anybody good enough in the AFC to beat the Bills right now. Is that fair? But yeah, I think Chiefs Bills are probably here. Here's the thing. I didn't like the Chiefs until last week. They were like the worst. I think you even said it. They were like the worst 13-1 football team in the history of the NFL. And they just keep winning. So I can't bet against them until they lose, but I really don't think there's anybody good enough in the conference to beat either one of those teams right now. Maybe the Ravens, definitely not the Steelers.
Let's look over the NFC because there's not really a whole lot to talk about. The The Falcons win the NFC South with a win and a loss by the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers win the NFC South with a win this week. I think they play New Orleans.
They do.
I think Spencer Rattler is set to start that game. The Saints are just not good. It doesn't matter.
So that's an auto win.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who they're starting at quarterback. So we're basically penciling in the Bucs at the 3 seed. The big game of the weekend this weekend is the Detroit Lions play host to the Minnesota Vikings. And the winner of that game not only wins the NFC South, but they win the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the loser will go down to the 5 seed and more than likely have to play at Tampa Bay. They'll on the road in the first game of the playoffs. Here's the question I want to ask about this, because we've talked about the fact that teams with losing records have won divisions, and they were still rewarded by winning their division with getting a home playoff game. Do you, like I feel, that the seeding in the NFL playoffs ought to go based on record and not by division champions?
No.
You don't think the Vikings should host a playoff game being 14-3 to end the season?
No, because you never know whether or not, like, look at the NFC West this season. That's a very decent, honestly, your division is brutal.
Oh, my 3 teams out of the NFC North made the postseason.
Yeah. So in certain situations, it's bad, but like the NFC West this season, these teams are beating on each other. All 4 of them are beating on each other. They're all mediocre to good teams. Maybe not Arizona, but they're close. And in that situation, when you have home and homes against these teams, you're going to lose some games. And so I still think the division winner should get the benefit of the doubt here. And I've seen those division winners with shocking upsets. The Beastquake was a losing record 7-9 division winner that beat a 13-3 Saints team.
One of my favorite runs of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a Barry Sanders type run. It was awesome.
So those types of games and memories aren't set up unless you reward these division champions, and you still have to win on the road. I mean, I think it was the Giants' first Super Bowl, the early 2000s Super Bowl, where Plaxico Burress caught a touchdown, I believe. That was a all road game win playoff run. They won every game on the road.
That's fair.
Yeah.
The Detroit, speaking of road games, Detroit Lions 8-0 on the season on the road. You talk about road warriors. They didn't lose a road game all season. We don't have much time left, Bill. The Pro Bowl rosters were announced, I believe, today or yesterday. We don't have time to go through the rosters, but the AFC looks like about what you would expect them to. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson at running back, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Jerry Jeudy. You said you talked really good about Jerry Jeudy after he got traded to the Cleveland Browns. Nico Collins and Zay Flowers is the first wide receiver drafted by the Ravens to make the Pro Bowl since the Ravens became the Ravens 29 years ago. Brock Bowers, rookie tight end, made his first Pro Bowl along with Travis Kelce, which that doesn't make sense to me. Look over on the NFC side. This is where it gets sort of interesting. Your Pro Bowlers at quarterback on the NFC side are Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, and Sam Darnold. You look at running back, Saquon, obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Josh Jacobs. And again, wide receivers you'd expect, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and Terry McLaurin. Trey McBride made the Pro Bowl despite having 1 touchdown all season. We can dive into this a little more next week. We have more time. Anybody notably missing from the Pro Bowl rosters? Anybody that surprised you about being on there?
Notably missing are Miami Dolphins players.
We're almost
a playoff team, and could be after this week, and not one single Miami Dolphins player made the Pro Bowl. I also want to know why Travis Kelce made the Pro Bowl. I'm tired of what we're seeing. This is the popularity contest, and sorry about that, Michelle, but he shouldn't be there. Nope. His production this year was just not up to par with some of the other tight ends in the league. Other than that, I mean, there's a bunch of people you could. Where's AJ Brown? Why did he not beat McLaurin out?
That's a good question.
He's got better stats. Like what happened there? There's a whole bunch of players that you go down the list. And
you talked about
you talked about Baker Mayfield. Why is Baker Mayfield 39 touchdowns not in the Pro Bowl?
The Buffalo Bills are the 2 seed in the AFC, and they have 2 Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
You look at other teams. You look at other teams without Pro Bowlers. The Miami Dolphins have none. The Patriots have 1. The Jets don't have any. There's 9 on the Ravens. 3 by the Browns. 2 by the Jags. None by the Titans. Let's see. I'm trying to go through here quickly. The Raiders have 2 in Brock Bowers and Max Crosby. The Cowboys have 5, despite being really bad. The Giants have 1. The Commanders have 2. The Bears actually have 1. Shout out to J.C. Horn. I believe he's the 5th Carolina Panther defense, 4th cornerback from the Panthers to be selected to the Pro Bowl. The other 3 were Stephon Gilmore, Josh Norman, and Eric Davis back in 1996. It looks like that's according to David Newton. So kudos
to
to
safety not on the roster.
Who you talking about? Brian Branch?
Kirby Joseph.
Yeah. I mean,
he's got
listen,
9 picks. He's got 9 interceptions.
There's a lot of guys that probably got left off that are good enough to be on here. That will be alternates when whoever makes the
fan vote. Are we still doing that as a fan vote?
I think some of them are. I don't know.
So like NFL fans are just
really,
dumb. Is that kind
really, I think it's the All-Pro team that you want to be a part of. Like the Pro Bowl is cool, but the All-Pro team is the one. Like it's like the All Madden team. Like that's the team you want to be on.
And there's only one per position in that one. If you make the All-Pro team, you're really special that year.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, words are hard. I did say I sounded like Porky Pig just now.
Actually, no, it was more like what was Yosemite Sam? Like, is that what it was?
I said. No,
that's what
yeah.
Like
I know
Foghorn Leghorn. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's it. I said we weren't going to talk about resting players. Saquon Barkley would have an opportunity to break the single season rushing record, but you said that the Eagles have already said they're going to sit him down. What do you feel about that?
I'm with Saquon's dad. He was really upset. I'm torn hard on that one.
If I'm Saquon, if I want to play, I'm going to play.
I'm about team. I've always been a team type of. I'm not an individual accolades type of guy, but we're talking about a 40-year-old NFL record that he probably is a shoe-in to beat this week against a decent Giants team, but he could probably do it, right? He's averaged obviously a great number of yards per game this season. So that is a record that is so hard to break. I mean, there's so many teams. It's so hard to get to 2,000, to get up to 21.
How many players did we decide had reached the 2,000 yard mark?
I think he's the 8th. I think he's the 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, I could almost name them all, but it's so hard to get there. So hard to get there.
If I'm the coaches, I'm letting him decide. Like, I don't want you to get hurt.
He was originally upset, but he said he's at peace with it now. But his dad was really upset.
Shout out because, again, Adrian Peterson tried to break the record, couldn't do it. I think Saquon could have done it had they let him play. If I'm the coaches, I'm leaving it up to him. If you want to play, that's fine. But if you are sore from taking a hit, we're taking you out of the game. Like, we're not letting you get hurt. We need you for the playoffs, which is why they're benching him in the first place.
I'm a team guy. I think it's the right call. It doesn't. The game means nothing, and there are more important games to be played. So. Oh, well. But, it's a 40-year-old record.
No. That being said, we're running a little late, which is surprising because we didn't have a whole lot of topics to talk about.
We just like to talk a lot.
We just got to talking. Let's talk about podcast pick'ems here. Last week, Bill, you went 4-1. I went 3-2, which puts the podcast regular season standings at 45-33 for Bill.
I was like 10-25 at one point.
I know. You've killed it. Thanks, Mama Frick, for the compliment. Needless to say, there weren't many games that I really felt like we could pick from this week, considering that playoff games aren't taking place until the week after. And the NFL games have a bunch of guys resting, a bunch of meaningless games. So I decided to start us off in podcast pick'em this week, taking what might be a marquee matchup in college basketball this weekend as the number 6 Florida Gators go on the road Saturday, 11 o'clock in the morning to take on the number 10 Kentucky Wildcats. Bill, you think your Gators are good enough to knock off Kentucky on the road?
No.
You really think so?
No.
I do. I don't think Kentucky's all that great.
Say that. They're doomed now.
I don't like Kentucky this year. I mean, yeah, they're a top 10 team, but everybody wanted to see, and I can't even say his name, their coach that's now at Arkansas. They were ready to see him go. They wanted something new. But it's Florida, man. Florida's on the road. I think Florida's really good.
They're really good. And if you've watched them play, they're pummeling like second level
everybody.
Teams. Everybody. They're pummeling teams. I
I've
think
never
they're a
se-
very good basketball team. They don't have a lot of standout type players. They're playing very well, but I think when they get up against better athletes, they're going to struggle a little bit more offensively. But we'll see. I mean, I would love to be wrong, but I just don't. I don't feel this one. Like this one for the fact that it's like a weird start time, like 11 a.m. That's really odd.
It's
Just
because
not
it
feeling this.
it is weird.
I have been watching them though. I don't usually watch too much basketball because I don't like the the culture around basketball and yeah. But yeah, I watch college basketball. I do like college basketball.
Shout out Brendan McCray. Love you too, man. Said gotta do the family thing. Keep up the great work on the mic. Appreciate your kind words. Shout out South Carolina. They beat a ranked Clemson team a few weeks ago. They're going on the road Saturday to take on a number 17 Mississippi State team. Not looking forward to that because we had to come from behind to beat Presbyterian earlier this week. So
Presbyterian.
Yeah. So anyway,
I appreciate you throwing some college basketball in there that's not women's college basketball because that's usually your thing. Yeah, but no, I do like college basketball because it is a team sport. NBA, it's all iso ball. I can't stand it. Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. I appreciate you throwing it in there. Go Gators.
Who can shoot up at as many threes as possible? We can talk about that.
Oh gosh, that's been so bad this year. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
to watch it just flame out. Terrible.
The first game we're going to talk about, we're not doing college football this week. We're going to do all NFL games. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers as a 2.5-point road favorite. This game is taking place Saturday night at 8 o'clock on ABC and ESPN. The Steelers on I think a 3 or 4 game losing streak.
Yeah.
And the Bengals need this game to make the playoffs along with some help from both the Dolphins and the Broncos. Bill, can the Bengals get it done and knock off Pittsburgh this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think Pittsburgh's really struggling right now on offense. The Bengals can't play defense, so this is going to be a shootout. But Joe Burrow has gone next level. So I think this is probably going to be a fun game. But I think I got the Bengals to win this one. I think the Steelers are struggling right now.
Yeah, give me the Bengals as well. And not only that, but I believe if the Bengals beat the Steelers, then that automatically gives the Baltimore Ravens the AFC North. So the Steelers have something to play for, but I just think the Bengals are too hot. They talk about this every year. The really slow starts, they finish strong. This year, I think they started off a little too soft for too long, and they're not going to make the playoffs. But I do like the Bengals in this game to cover this 2.5-point spread and get the win on the road.
The Ravens are playing the Browns, so they already have the NFC North.
The AFC North, yeah. No, touche.
Right, yeah. Why I can't say the right thing? AFC North.
Right, I know what you're saying. Yeah, touche. The next game, I actually decided to pick this game before I realized the Seahawks were mathematically eliminated last week. The Rams have already won the NFC West. I thought the Seahawks might have been in play for a wild card. They are not. The wild card is already set. But the Seahawks taking on a Rams team that looks like they're going to bench most of their starters in this game as well. Seahawks a 6.5-point favorite on the road in Los Angeles. 4:25 kickoff over on Fox. Bill, what say you, Seahawks at Rams? Can the Seahawks cover this playing the Rams B team?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to see them beat the Rams. I think they have something to prove, and it's going to look really weird when they do beat the Rams, and then they don't make the playoffs anyway. But and finish with the same record. Tiebreakers. I don't know what their tiebreaker system, but we'd have to look that up. But that's what it comes down to if they do beat the Rams.
Yeah, give me Seattle to win this game by multiple touchdowns. I don't think they're going to play Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua all that much. They want Kyron Williams to be healthy going into the playoffs, and they definitely can't afford Matt Stafford to get hurt. If they play, it won't be long. Give me the Seahawks to win this game by at least 10. Next up on the list, the Miami Dolphins, you said more than likely playing without Tua Tagovailoa. They are a 1-point road favorite at the New York Jets. This is another 4:25 kickoff on Fox. Listen, Aaron Rodgers has already said that if this is his last game with the Jets, it's been a great ride, yada, yada, yada. With or without Tua, I like the Dolphins to win this game, at least to make it interesting. Winning this game would eliminate the Bengals, but I don't think it matters because I think the Broncos are going to win this weekend anyway. But give me the Dolphins to get this game, just because the Jets are that bad. Bill, what say you? Your Dolphins against the Jets.
In Miami, they went to overtime with Tua playing, and the Dolphins did come away with a 32-26 win. I think even if Tua plays, well, I think they probably win the game if Tua plays, but not with Huntley playing. So I think I'm going to take the Jets in the game.
Jets.
Sucks.
Yeah,
all right.
the last game is is the game of the weekend over the NFL as the Minnesota Vikings travel to the Detroit Lions. I did not put the spread on the ticker. The Lions are a 3-point favorite at home to win the NFC North and to win the number 1 seed in the NFC. Bill, what say you Vikings at Lions on Sunday Night Football over on Peacock and NBC?
I have no idea. But this is going to be must-watch football. This is a playoff game for both these teams. They should both treat it as such. The 1 seed is so important in the NFL. And I think I'll go Lions because they're at home. They cover the 3. I don't want to. I think that's the wrong pick. I feel pressure staring at your jersey. I'm very nervous. Too many injuries for the Lions, but I think that the energy of the crowd is absolutely going to bring them home. So it's going to be very interesting if they win the 1 seed with so many injuries on that defense.
In week 7, the Detroit Lions went to Minnesota and took a 31-29 win against the Vikings. They led 21-10 at halftime. They went down 10-0 in this game and had to march back. The Vikings made a push in the fourth quarter to get the win. However, Jake Bates kicked a 44-yard field goal with 19 seconds left to get the win. You said it. They are playing at home. That Lions crowd is going to be ruckus because they feel this team feels like they should have had the 1 seed last year in the NFC, and they gave away a game to the Dallas Cowboys last season.
We're doing the eligible. We're eligible for
They almost tried to give away a game. I believe it was last weekend. They didn't play all that 49ers.
Well.
Yeah. But nevertheless, give me the Lions, man. I can't bet against them this week, only because this team really, really wants it. I know there's a lot of injuries on defense on this team, and that's probably the biggest thing that scares me. A lot of the team that played the Vikings earlier this year will not be playing this weekend. Alex Anzalone had a broken forearm earlier this season. They thought they might get him back this week. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Obviously, I think it was Aleem McNeil went down for the season. A couple other guys have gone out since then. Malcolm Rodriguez, a defensive back, went down for the season. So a lot of injuries on defense. That being said, they played a basically full-strength Niners team minus their running backs last week and avenged their NFC Championship game loss at San Francisco, albeit against the 6-win Niners team. I like the Lions to get that NFC North crown and to get that 1 seed because the Lions do not want to go on the road and have to play again. Because, again, now granted, they haven't lost a game on the road this season, but imagine how that game would have gone differently last year had they played the NFC Championship game in Detroit instead of San Francisco.
I still think they win the Super Bowl.
Listen, I hope they do. And
no,
if Aaron Thompson goes back. Oh yeah. Listen, they would have won the Super Bowl had they been able to hold off San Francisco, but that's neither here nor there. We went a little late, which was not something I was expecting to happen. Bill, anything that you want to talk about in overtime before we sign off for the night?
I got nothing. Enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy the weekend. You've got a couple of decent football games. College basketball is kicking off, like getting into conference play. So if you're a basketball fan, we just talked about this, a top 10 matchup in SEC teams with Kentucky and Florida this weekend. You're getting deep into conference play with all of your conferences. Trey Tolles in the chat. Happy New Year, guys. Enjoy the show as always. Thank you for joining us. Trey, you'll have to get your dad to figure out how to watch the show one night so he can come and join in all the fun. His dad is a huge Gamecock fan as well. Was at the bowl game.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants his dad to come to listen to the show.
As a Gamecock fan, no. As
Shut
a guy,
up, Bill.
yes.
Shut up. You're getting muted for that. No, I'm kidding. If you haven't already done so, make sure you follow the show on all of our social medias on Facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns. Over on X, I have full power to tweet again or to post on X again, whatever the case is, at tapouts and TDs, on YouTube at tapouts and touchdowns. We were live on Instagram tonight, despite the fact that not a lot of people were joining us live on Instagram. You can go follow me at Ryan Frick Comedy over there. Folks, I hope you've had a great New Year. Hope you all had a great holiday. We'll be back next week to wrap up the regular season in the NFL and look forward to the actual playoffs. And we'll get to look ahead to the Final Four in college football as your football seasons are starting to wind down, and get ready for our hiatus for a little while as the seasons come to an end. For Baker Bill, it's your guy, Bully Ry. We'll see you next time right here on Tap House and Touchdowns.